Welcome back everyone to my channel. This is a last minute video. There's a lot going on in the world today. So much so that I take my mouse in hand nearly every day and consider making a video. And I usually don't because I get sidetracked by other things that are going on in my life. Because guess what? I work. I have to work to make money in order to pay for the things I need in my life, to be able to help others with the money that I make. So I can't just sit here and make a video, although they need to be made and the information and the knowledge need to be shared. It becomes difficult for a guy like me to be able to continually take the time to make a video. And that's part of the problem that we're in. Those of us that know the truth find themselves unable to speak because they just don't have the time. Now, that's not true across the board. There are many other people who would have the time. Think those older than me that are retired, who could speak, who could make videos, who could write letters to the editor, who could write to their legislators, but they won't. And part of the reason why we're going through what we are today is because of you. Because you didn't speak. I'm doing what I can. That's what it comes down to. So what did I come across today? Well, I get the notice that there's a survey out. And I get invited to take the survey. So I wanted you, as I went through this survey, I wanted you to come along for the ride so I can explain, number one, why surveys don't often really portray reality, and number two, my thought process as I go through answering the questions in the survey. So come along for the ride and enjoy. So here we go with some of these questions, and I'm just going to go through these as I go and explain my thought process. As you may know, all public school students in Maryland are currently eligible for meals in school. Some have argued that we should extend this program for 1 year using funds we already received from the federal government, while others argue that we should use the money for other priorities. Would you support or oppose extending the school meals program for 1 year? My answer, strongly oppose. Now, why? Well, because this question doesn't address my thoughts. The public schools shouldn't exist. It's a communistic system. It's socialism. It's one we have had ingrained in us for decades, and nobody even questions it. Nobody even questions it. Let's go look real quick at the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. Real quick. How Marxist has the United States become? Let me dive down here. Heavy progressive, abolition of all rights of inheritance, confiscation of all property of immigrants and rebels. Number 10. Free education for all children in government schools. Wham! These are government schools supported by my tax dollars that I did not send my children to. I homeschooled my kids, but yet I paid my taxes and they were taken and used for this because I am responsible. These people are not. And then we sit back, some of us, and we say, why are kids growing up the way they are? Because of this. This is the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto. Most of you conservatives don't even realize it. You just go along with the plan. So here is some arguments both for and against extending Maryland school meals program for 1 year. So the first one, if we can pay tens of millions of dollars for textbooks that will be out of date in a year, there's no reason we can't cover apples and sweet potato fries. Sweet potato fries. Let's extend the Healthy Schools for All programs to make sure students in Maryland have food to eat when they're in school. Again, I don't agree with public schools. It's a communist system. Why would I say yes? So I mark not a very convincing argument because I don't agree with the precept. Here's another one. Every student needs food to learn and get through the day, but ending Maryland's healthy schools, and I have to ask the question, just how healthy are our schools when the majority of students in the schools are forced to wear masks 8 to 10 hours a day? And it would disproportionately hurt students of color and those from lower income families. You know, we get told all the time that our culture is color blind, but yet this kind of thing keeps coming up. That's also a communist technique, to divide and conquer. To divide and conquer. Hey, guess what? We're all human beings, right? We're all made in the image of God, right? So you fathers, it's your duty to make sure your kids have food to eat, not the state. Bottom line. So I don't think it's a very convincing argument because I don't agree with the precept that it's built upon. Again, how about this one? With so many families struggling across Maryland, why are they struggling? Because the government shut down small businesses as non-essential. Governor Hogan, Kelly Schwartz, and anyone else currently in government, non-essential. They're struggling because they're out of work, but the government will solve the problem they created. And then this complete farce wordplay. Extending our Healthy Schools for All program will give families the breathing room they need to make ends meet. I don't know if that was a purposeful play on words or not. Breathing room while you force masks on the kids. I may not be, I may not have a bunch of letters after my name, but I'm not an idiot. So, no, I don't agree with this. How about this one? The federal government has already provided all the funds we need to extend Maryland's Healthy Schools. This won't cost Maryland taxpayers a dime. Hey, Maryland taxpayers, you pay federal taxes too. This is still your money. It's a false distinction. It won't cost Maryland taxpayers any money. Well, then who's paying it? Maryland taxpayers. That's how this works. Do you not see the complete insanity of the system that we have been thrust into? Again, not a very convincing argument. How about this one? If we don't extend the Healthy Schools program, thousands of Maryland families who have relied on the program will suddenly struggle to feed their kids at a time when families are struggling in so many ways. Government creates the problem, government offers a solution. It's that simple. Until you reject this kind of idiocy, it's just going to continue. So I'm going to mark that one a not very convincing argument again because I just explained why. So let's see. Of course, no child should go hungry, but we shouldn't be wasting public money on feeding children from families who aren't struggling when there are so many other problems we could be solving with that money. What money? Where's this money coming from? From me and others who are actually working and paying their taxes. That money's coming from us while many people just don't work and reap the benefits of all my labors. But I'm just expected to fall for this false dichotomy again. I don't want to see kids go hungry. I've paid for many meals for people out of my own pocket, pre-taxes. It's not the state's job to feed all the people. But until we accept that and believe it, nothing will change. So again, it's not a very convincing argument. If we keep extending the Healthy Schools for All program forever, and you got to ask the question, where did this come from in the first place? Healthy Schools for All. How is it a healthy school for all? Where did this originate? It will bankrupt our state. If we have limited amount of money, instead of giving every single student free meals, we need to make hard choices about where those dollars are needed most. Notice this hard choices, clever choice of words. Again, this is more of an appeal to emotion. Frankly, if it was up to me, these state schools would be completely disbanded and unfunded, and the local community, the parents, the fathers in particular, would sit down and say, how are we going to educate our children? Now, if I want to send my child to some kind of institution, I would be involved in the hiring process of the teachers. I would be part of the school board because it's my child in that school. Unfortunately, today, most parents are completely disconnected from this. They don't even know the school board members. They can't even name them, let alone attend their meetings. But yet, they're going to solve our problems for us. Again, not a very convincing argument for me. Now that you've read some more, would you support or oppose extending the school meals program for 1 year? Strongly oppose. Here we have the National School Lunch Program, currently giving millions of public school students living near or below the poverty line access to free or reduced price lunch. The cost to taxpayers is just a few $100s per student year. Which of the following best matches your views on providing meals to public school students? It's a struggle sometimes just for me to feed my own family, let alone everyone else's. Because you know why? Because the government takes so much of my earned money to redistribute it to many others. And that's what this all is. Redistribution. So, again, I'm tired of it. I'm just going to say no. Here are below are some areas where our state government is considering spending some of the money we receive from the federal government as part of the American Rescue Plan. Why did we need rescue? Because we shut everything down. I know of local restaurants who stepped up and provided free meals to any student who needed them. And I was there as parents rolled in with their kids to get these free meals, never even batting an eye at the fact that they were taking advantage of that small business that had been shut down by the government, but yet was allowed to open up to give free meals to these students. Most of the parents, and I talked to a couple of the restaurant owners, never darkened the door of that restaurant before until they were offered free meals. I eat almost exclusively at locally owned businesses because I want to support them. But these parents who lack any social consciousness just take advantage of it, just like they do the tax money. I've got a family friend who receives over $400 a month on his quote unquote independence card, but yet he can't take that $400 a month and use it to buy his food because at the end of every month he reaches out and he's crying because he has no food to eat. Despite the state giving him all this free money, paying for his shelter, paying for his room, I still have to step in and buy him food. The state is a failure because it was never meant to do this. That's what it comes down to. So let's see. We're being asked to consider spending some of the money we receive from the federal government. Again, that's coming from me, federal taxpayer. Also, it doesn't really exist because the federal government doesn't have this kind of money in the first place because there aren't enough of me left to give them all this money. So they just print it off. And now we're seeing hyperinflation circling in. It's like a vulture over a dead carcass. Our country is dead, and this vulture is circling. Soon it's going to come down to feed. Was it 7.2 inflation I saw, the highest since like 1982. Buckle up, folks. It's about to get bad. So let's go through here. That's not a priority at all. That's not a priority at all. That's not a priority at all. I'm just sick of this ridiculous dependence on the federal government, thinking that they have the pot at the end of the rainbow and they can just create this money out of nothing. It's not how it works. Okay, what's next? How big of a problem do you think hunger is among school students in Maryland? Really? Actually, I don't know. I could guess, but I don't know. Do you agree or disagree with the following statements? Let's see. Private schools should provide meals to students who are in need. Strongly disagree because I don't agree with public schools. Because 10th plank, Communist Manifesto. Students in need should not be prohibited from getting free meals in school just because their parents' income is slightly above the limit. Well, who creates those limits? Board of Education locally, state, federal? I don't know. Don't care. Disagree. State government has an obligation to ensure that no child goes hungry. The parents have an obligation to ensure their child does not go hungry. I grew up in the 80s. My dad struggled to feed us, but we never went hungry. He fed us. He created a garden in the backyard in order to produce food for us. He hunted so that we could have meat to eat. He went above and beyond so that his kids would never go hungry. It's your job as parents to make sure your kids don't go hungry, not the stinking states. How's that? Students who accept free meals from school often face shame from others, which in some cases makes them unwilling to take the free lunches even though they're hungry. So now, to prevent shame, we're going to give it to everyone. Come on, people. While we can all agree that no child should be hungry, it's simply too expensive to provide free meals to most students. Why is it too expensive? The government can just print off more money, right? State should provide the help it can, but we can't bankrupt ourselves to do it. That's actually kind of somewhat a convincing argument to me, so I'm going to mark that one. Though hunger is a problem, it simply can't take priority over the many other huge problems we face, from crime to economic challenges. What's this, switch and bait? Switch and bait, poor, hungry children versus economic challenges versus crime. It's a switch and bait. That's all that is. Throw it in the trash can. 1 in 6 kids in America are facing hunger, and most families live on the edge of food insecurity. And if that's not a new agey use of phraseology and wording, I don't know what is. Food insecurity. My parents faced food insecurity. And so they planted a garden. I learned a work ethic from that because I helped with the garden. We hunted. I learned a work ethic from that. I sat in bitter cold weather to hunt, to get food to put on the table. You know what the food insecurity arises from? The lack of parents' responsibility to their kids, which is encouraged by the state and by polls like this kind of thing. If we don't make school meals as freely available as possible, an unthinkable number of children will suffer. Appeal to emotion. I see children suffering every day. Sexual abuse, domestic violence. On and on the list could go. Nobody bats an eye at that. Child trafficking. Don't bat an eye at that. Again, not a very convincing argument. Children should never go hungry. I went hungry. Not as a child, but as an adult when I was in the military. Anyway, it should not be up to the public schools to be the solution. For starters, that leaves out the many children who are not in public schools. Wait a second. What kind of tomfoolery is that? What about the kids that aren't in public school? You know why they aren't in public school? Because their parents are stepping up and taking responsibility for their education like they're supposed to. I'm getting upset just going through this. Then we have the race card again. Black and Latino students are much likelier than white students to come to school hungry. Solving school hunger is a large step towards lessening racial inequality. I can't even. I'm so sick of this. We're all human beings created in the image of God. We all have duties imposed upon us in the created order that God created. If you're a parent of a child, if you had sexual relations with another person and had a child, that child is your responsibility, not the state's. I don't care if it's black or Latino or Chinese or Taiwanese or whatever. It's your job. And if you as a parent are failing, it's on you. It's not on the state to do that. All the state's doing is using this as a way to push this inequality thing, which is another part of the communist attack on us, is to create these divisions, to use one against the other, to create conflict. That's all communism is, and that's all this does. What's this? Hold on. Over 300 generals, admirals, and other top military officials recently wrote a letter to Congress urging them to modernize school nutrition programs as a matter of urgent national security. The generals and admirals said that childhood obesity disqualifies 1 in 3 children from military service, putting America's security at risk. Where do I even go with that one? You know what? It's not the schools that did this. It's the parents taking their kids to McDonald's, where they slap them in front of a Happy Meal and a super duper large Coke with absolutely zero nutritional value. And that's what they feed them day in, day out. Do they go out and exercise? No, they sit in front of a screen and play their computer games. But the state that created most of these problems too is going to solve the problem. I'm not even going to bother going on with this one because, again, at the heart of it, this is part of the plank of the Communist Manifesto: free education for all children in government schools, abolition of children's factory labor in its present form, combination of education with industrial production, etc., etc. Part of the Communist Manifesto. Something we need to repent of and close these idiot state-sponsored schools down and return to the old paths. That's what it comes down to. And really, I can't even go on with the survey. I'm not going to drag this video out any longer than it already is. Take it for what it's worth. It's my 2 cents. I hope you think about it. Set your emotions aside. I know many of us are deeply attached to these public school systems because we went through them. Frankly, you get asked these questions all the time. If you could go back to high school again and do over what you did then with what you know now, would you do it? My severe answer is no. Never would I go through that again. Ever. And nor would I put my child through that. It's time to wake up. It's time to face the God-created reality in which we live. It's time for you as a father, you as a mother, to step up and provide for your own kids. And it's time for the state to get out of it. Have a good day. We'll talk again later.